students, we will be continuing with Science 1, chapter number 8, Metallurgy. Today we will be learning about some principles related to metallurgy. What is metallurgy? The science and technology regarding the extraction of metals from their ores and their purification for the use is called metallurgy. We will be learning some concepts related to it. Occurrence of metals. Now we know that most metals are reactive and hence they do not occur in free state but are found in combined state as the salts such as oxides, carbonates, sulfides, nitrates. What it means is that, say for example, if it's copper. Now we do not get copper in the free state as copper. We usually get it as an oxide, that is copper oxide or copper carbonate, copper sulfide, copper nitrate, and from that we have to extract the metal copper. This whole process is called as metallurgy. The most unreactive metals, that is the noble metals, who are unaffected by air, water and other natural factors like etc., are silver, gold, platinum. They occur in the free state because they do not react with moisture, air or anything. That's the reason they are called as the noble elements. The compounds of metals that occur in nature along with the impurities are called as minerals. So from these minerals we have to purify and get the metals by the process of metallurgy. The minerals from which the metal can be separated economically are called as ores. Now this is what it means is, say for example, if you take soil of any place, now it may contain some amount of iron, it may contain some amount of copper or things like that. But that doesn't mean that we start digging up and taking it and purifying for metal. The place where we have maximum amount of a particular metal, and that is called as ore. So from the ores we get the metals. Ores contain many types of impurities such as soil, sand, rocky substance, etc. These impurities are called as gangue. Metals can be extracted from their ores by the methods of separation. Now the process of extraction of metal in the pure state from the ore is also a part of metallurgy. Ores are taken out from the mines and the gangue is usually separated from the ore at the site itself by various methods. Then the ores are carried out to the places where metals are produced. The metals are extracted in the pure form. Then metals are further purified by different methods of purification. This entire process, that is from the mining to taking out the ore, from the ore to remove the impurities, from removing the impurities to getting a purified metal, is called as metallurgy. In this chapter we will be learning about, or now we will be learning a little bit more about the process in which we purify and extract. This is the flow chart that shows that from ore we get the pulverized ore, from that partly concentrated, impure metal and pure metal is extracted. Basic principles of metallurgy. Metallurgy basically consists of two main parts. The first one is concentration of the ore and the second one is the purification of ore. Concentration of the ore basically means the method in which we remove the gangue or the impurities to get from the ore. So the process of separating gangue from the ore is called concentration of ore. In this process, the concentration of the compound of the desired metal is increased. Various ways are used. However, exact way to be used depends upon the physical properties of the metals present in the ore and the gangue. It also depends upon the reactivity of the metals. Various factors that can be responsible for the environmental pollutants are also considered. Some general methods of concentration of the ores are as follows. As we said, concentration of ore means the process in which the gangue is removed. So there are basically four types. One is called as gravitation based separation, one is called as leaching, one is called as froth flotation method, and other is called as magnetic separation method. These types are based on the type of metal that we are extracting. For example, if it is related to something like, which is light, then we use the first flotation method. Something like which gets is a magnetic substance, then it can be magnetic separation method. The first one is separation based on gravitation. The heavy particles of ores can be easily separated from the light particles of the gangue by the gravitation method. What it means is that when you crush and powder the ore, and that time if the metals are heavy, then they can settle down, and if it is the lighter one, they can be separated out. The first one is called as Wilfle table method. In this method of separation, the Wilfle table is made by fixing narrow and thin wooden riffles on inclined surface. See, if you look at it on an inclined surface, the table is kept vibrating continuously. Continuously, it keeps on moving or vibrating. Powdered ore obtained from the lumps of the ore using a ball mill is poured on the table, and a stream of water is released from the upper side. Look at the diagram. Concentrated ore and the water on the upper side. As a result, the lighter gangue particles, that is the impurities which are light, are carried away along with the flowing water, while the heavier particle, in which proportion of mineral is more and proportion of impurity is less, are blocked by the wooden ripples and get collected down slits between them. See, look at over there. So the gangue gets separated while the impurities are separated and the pure metal is also separated. Hydraulic separation method. This is also a part of the separation based on gravitation, but as the word hydraulic, it involves water. The hydraulic separation method is based on the working of a mill. There is a tapering vessel similar to that used in a grinding mill, like a cone. It opens in a tank-like container that is tapering on the lower side. The tank has an outlet for water on the upper side and a water inlet in the lower side. Look at the diagram. On you have a cone kind of a thing, then you have a place where you put the powder ore, and then you have a water inlet and an outlet place. Finely ground powdered ore is released in the tank from top. A forceful jet of water is introduced in the tank from the lower side. The impurities are lighter, and therefore they flow out along with the water jet from the outlet on the upper side of the tank and get collected separately. At the same time, the heavy particles of the ore are collected at the bottom from the lower side of the tank. In short, this method is based on the law of gravitation, wherein particles of the same size are separated by their weight with the help of water. The next one, magnetic separation method. So the first one was you had the method in which it is based on gravity. So under that there were two parts. Second one is magnetic separation method. This method requires an electromagnetic machine. The main part of this machine are two types of iron rollers. Look down like a conveyor belt, and the conveyor belt moving continuously around them. It's similar to something that you see in the airport, a conveyor belt in which the all the luggage and etc. come. One of the roller is magnetic, while the other is electromagnetic. Now the conveyor belt moving around the roller is non-magnetic, made up of leather or brass. The powdered ore is poured on the conveyor belt near the non-magnetic roller. Two collector vessels are placed below the magnetic roller. Now what happens is, if you see, you have a magnetic part and a non-magnetic one. Then you have a covering, that is the conveyor belt. Now here what happens, from top you put the you put the powdered ore, and as the powdered ore falls down, the particle of the non-magnetic part in the ore does not get attracted towards the magnetic roller. So what happens, they get carried away further and fall in the collecting vessel which is away from the magnetic roller. While the particles which are magnetic, they stick to the magnetic roller and come closer to the collector vessel near the magnetic roller. In this way, the magnetic and non-magnetic ingredients in the ore can be separated. For example, if the cassiterite is a tin ore, it contains mostly non-magnetic ingredient like SnO2, that is tannic oxide, and magnetic like ferrous tungsten. Now here what happens, The non-magnetic part and the magnetic part gets separated. Froth flotation method. Froth is like the foam. The froth flotation method is based on two properties which are opposite, hydrophilic and hydrophobic of the particles. Hydrophilic means something that sticks to water, hydrophobic is something that does not stick to water. Here the particle of metal sulfide, due to their hydrophobic property, get wetted mainly with oil, while due to the hydrophilic property the gangue gets wetted with the water. By using this property, ores can be separated. If you understand that, it is similar to what we do when we are using soap. If you remember in the lower classes, we have learned about soap, and there we had said that soap, when we we use soap or powder or some powdered soap or some detergent, the hydrophobic part and the hydrophilic part get separated and the dirt can be removed along with the froth. It is similar like that. So the gangue mixes with the water and the other particle mixes with the oil. This is the diagram of froth flotation method. If you see the diagram, you have a agitator which moves like a washing machine inside, you have a air supply, you have different things. In this method, the finely ground, that is finely powdered ore, is put into a big tank containing a lot of water. Certain oil, vegetable oil such as eucalyptus or pine oil, is added in the water because that oil forms the froth that floats on top. Pressurized air is blown through the water. There is an agitator rotating around its axis in the center of the flotation tank. The agitator is used as per the requirement. Bubbles are formed due to the blown air. Due to agitation, a foam is formed from oil, water, etc. and forms a froth kind of a thing. The foam rises to the surface of water and floats. That is why it is called as froth flotation. Now the gangue comes down, dissolves in water and comes down, and the froth contains the ore and is taken out separately. The particle of certain sulfide ores float with the foam on water as they are preferentially get wet by the oil. For example, it is used for the concentration of ZNS and copper pyrite. Fourth method of separating the ores and the metal is called leaching. The first step in the extraction of metal, aluminium, gold and silver from the ore is the method of leaching. In this method, the ore is soaked in a certain solution for a long time. The ore dissolves in that solution due to specific chemical reaction. The gangue, however, does not react and therefore does not dissolve in that solution. So they can be easily separated. For example, concentration of bauxite, the aluminium ore, is done by the leaching method. Here bauxite is soaked in aqueous NaOH or aqueous Na2CO3, which dissolves the main ingredient alumina. So this leaching process is basically like a soaking process in which part of the thing gets soaked and the impurities does not dissolve and they are removed. What is during the extraction of metals from their ore, metal is obtained from the cation of the metal. In this process, the metal cation can be reduced. Now, how to bring about the reduction depends upon the reactivity of the metal. So, these four processes we learned was about how to separate. Now, we'll be learning about how to purify and get the extraction. So to summarize, the steps involved in extraction is you take out the ore, you crush and grind it and make fine powder of it, then you concentrate the ore. That is the process of removing the gangue. In that there are four ways as we saw: gravity separation, magnetic separation, froth flotation and leaching. And again under that the gravity separation there are two different. So till this much we learned today. Next lecture we will be learning about the next process of roasting, calcination, reduction, refining and getting the pure metal. Thank you.